Welcome to an episode of Subconscious Realms. I'm your host, General Lee. And for tonight, well, ladies and gentlemen, tonight's guest needs no introduction whatsoever. Please welcome the absolutely extraordinary host and creator of Hermes Risen podcast and DJ Elliot on YouTube, our Debbie. Now then, Debbie.
Can we say that these days now then?
Hey, you're the first. Yeah, we both know exactly what. Yeah, it's very impressive you've picked that up. You're the only person in just over a year I've had the Subconscious Realm for Debbie, and you're the only person that said that. I'm so impressed with you.
Well, we have to be careful who
we've got to be careful.
That reminds people of.
We have to disclose who that is, or should we not? Let's leave it there.
Yeah, leave it there. Those that know will know. You don't need to put his name out there into the realm. He needs to be forgotten.
But I mean, he's killed that saying anyway. But yeah. Anyway, how have you been, Debbie?
I've been fine, thank you. I've been enjoying the equinox, which was last week, and yesterday our clocks turned back, didn't they? And we were just saying about how it's great to see the sun still at 7 o'clock at night. It's just lovely. I've been enjoying the weather and trying to get out to as many countryside places as I can. And equinox, I went to Epping Forest with a friend, and
oh really?
Yeah, it was beautiful. And we went. It's a proper old woods, really old forest, and used to be an old settlement there many centuries ago. So we went walking around trying to connect with the ancestors and looking at all the old trees and just feeling the vibes of the place. And it was very we felt that day that I wouldn't say we were being watched, but we knew we weren't alone. It was nice. And we could see all animal figures in the trees, you know, in the bark and in the branches, like as if the trees had lots of what we would call elementals, I suppose, figures inside them. So it was just nice to be tuned into the earth for a while and just wander. Though it wasn't sunny that day. It was warm, but it was quite cloudy. And
well, I am intrigued by you saying you thought, you know, as if somebody or something was watching you. You tend to get that in a lot of woodland. You do up here. I'm sure you get down like that. Epping's, like you're saying, it's one of the older forestries from what I'm led to believe anyway.
Yeah, it's got a lot of history. You know, Dick Turpin hid away in there, the highwayman. Yeah, and it's got it used to be a royal forest, so that this is where the king used to go or the queen. Used to go hunting deer and things like that, and us poor people weren't allowed in there.
I didn't know that, but you know, it's an area where that would have gone on, especially, you know, in and around London. That's where royalty is known for, isn't it? Really, I guess.
Well, we also felt someone was watching because we went with the intention of trying to connect with the ancestors. So when we got to the forest, we did like a sort of a little prayer. Maybe some people might call it a ritual of calling out north, south, east, and west. Maybe, you know, anybody there that wants to connect.
Yeah.
Whether it's ancestors from the past or other beings.
Yes, we're sitting watching it, woods.
And we wanted good intention, so we'd gone with good intention. So I think we both felt that whatever was there wasn't a bad vibration for them, or you know, something malicious. It was definitely something that was intrigued that we were there to connect. You know, most people just walk through the woods, you know, walking their dog or riding their bike, kind of not really thinking about what they're doing. They're just, you know, going for a walk. Yeah, well, we'd gone with intention. And we'd gone looking for the ancient site, which we found.
Did you get any pictures?
I've got a few, not many, because I was too busy looking around at like, oh, this is just such a wonderful place. But there was, when we sat down, I thought I saw a giant hare, and then when I looked properly, I saw it was the remains of a trunk of a tree, like the rest of the tree had gone, and it was really weird that it was in the shape of a hare, and it hadn't been carved; it was natural.
Yes.
And that hares mean a lot at the ancients and in pagan religions and things. The myths of the hare. So we felt that was quite special for us.
Yeah, I mean, with like, I know a hare's not a rabbit, but with it being the year of the rabbit as well, I bet that was a bit.
Yeah.
That
It was the Romans that brought rabbits to our country.
really.
Yeah, they brought them for food. So we, what have the Romans ever done for us? Well, they gave us rabbits.
It's funny you should mention Romans. I think there was something on YouTube. I didn't watch the whole video, but it was like the Romans, and they brought the I don't know how to out or the word, the queer culture to Britain. They were known
Yeah,
for
anything goes in Rome.
yeah, that's probably where the saying comes from, isn't it? But yeah, it is. Woodlands are just fascinating. We've got some. I mean, like I've mentioned before, we've got Sankey Valley near where I live, and it's lovely. I mean, the canal itself, it's not been looked after. It's just like clogged. You'd think that they would drain it, but it's either clogged up or people use it as dumping ground for rubbish, which is just absolutely disgusting.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
uh, I can't understand the mentality of some people. But you've got a bin bag, you've got rubbish in it. You put it in a bin. You don't put it in a canal.
Only litters drop. Oh no, only losers drop litter.
Yeah. Yes.
Well, I feel the same way as you. I don't understand that mentality myself. I've got a woodland on one side of the estate I live on and heathland on the other. And many of us go out litter picking quite a bit. And I don't know why people dump their unwanted washing machines and mattresses and things on the heath. It's so annoying. It's like, why don't you just take it to a tip?
That's what they're for. That's what tips are for. It's all in they are here anyway. They're in sections. Like you've got your electrical. Some will even pick up, like with like refrigerators. How you've got to keep them upright, aren't you? Because it can that cause like some sort of damage, or
Mm-hmm.
they'll even pick it up for you. Do you still get like rag and bone men come round?
Oh yeah, we do. Yes. Which is good because most of us give our stuff to them, like when we have
Yeah.
items we don't want anymore. Though it was annoying, one rag and bone man around here, he didn't want to take the fridge. He just smashed the battery part out. I suppose it's not a battery, like the motor out, and then just left me the casing. It's like, great, now I've still got to get rid of it somehow.
Yeah, but they get money for it, don't they?
Mm.
I know which part of me. It's like I don't know, it's like a generator type thing in the fridge. It's worth a bit of money, but yeah, the one near where I used to live before where I am now, they used to play on like a speaker. They used to play the Any Old Iron song. He's coming around. It's like, oh god, which is
So they're coming. Yes, I thought he was going to say the Steptoe and Son theme. But usually them kind of people still understand how to use the land. People that dump stuff are people that are just not connected with the earth and have, just live a materialistic life, that have no concern about what this planet is.
Yeah, no appreciation, Debbie. That's what it is.
Though I'm going to top your rag and bone man. I have an ice cream van round here in the summer that plays the Match of the Day theme, and then you get that stuck in your head forever.
Yeah. That's a good one. I love it.
It is actually, isn't it? It's different. At least it's not, the continuous ding-a-ling-a-lings. Match of the Day coming down the road.
Well, I know it's like completely off topic now, but what did you just? I don't know if you watch Match of the Day, but what about all that with Gary Lineker the other week?
Freedom of speech. There should be freedom of speech. He should be allowed to say what he wants. His
Ex-
Twitter account has nothing to do with his BBC career.
Yes,
Plus, he's right. We should be looking after these refugees. They're human beings.
yes,
Well, not necessarily, but there should be more care.
yes.
Because I don't know if you know Banksy's boat. Banksy. He put together a refugee rescue boat, and that got impounded. I think it was yesterday or Sunday, or this weekend, which is just disgusting. He wants to go out and help the people, but because it's Banksy.
Yeah, he's always been demonised, hasn't he?
Hmm.
I think the art he does is extraordinary.
Well, it's a waking up kind of art, isn't it? People look at it and it makes them think, and the governments and the powers, the elite, don't want people thinking, do they? So that's why they don't like him.
Do you think? Oh, have you got an idea who you think it is?
Why they're like that with him?
No, who he actually is.
Oh, who he is? Oh, I don't know. No, I have no idea.
Well, I don't. But have you heard of a group called Massive Attack?
Oh, I love Massive Attack. Yes.
Well, there's one of their members. He is. Let me get his name. He's known. They call him 3D.
Yeah.
Robert. If you look at his graffiti, his art, and look at Banksy's, similarities are just
interesting. Okay.
yes. And I know that it's been spoken about. Like a lot of Banksy's work appears when Massive Attack are on tour in the areas where they're on tour. So I don't know. It might just be a psyop, but who knows?
Interesting that, yeah, because they split up a long time ago, didn't they? I'm sure that Massive Attack's still on around, but I can't remember what album it is of theirs that I just absolutely adored. Gone from my head, but yeah, I do love a bit of Massive Attack. I've never seen them live.
No, me neither. Actually, they were on at Glastonbury one year that I went, but I just with because there's that many different stages, you can never get to see everything. And what they do is they'll put like Massive Attack on one stage, and then another one they might put Oasis or something. So you either one or the other, and
you have to choose,
which can be painful. Especially when you miss something that you like. Anyway, we're talking about graffiti and woodlands when we need to speak about something else, never. Something that I don't know a lot about. I know little, but super interesting individual. Like the ones that previous. We've got Austin Osman Spur. We've got Eliphas Levi. He's in that wheelhouse of that caliber. I would say occult geniuses.
Absolutely.
And that is John D.
Yes.
The
Queen's astrologer, Queen Elizabeth I.
With his 2 volcano signature.
Yeah, without Dr. D, we probably wouldn't have a lot of the magic and even occult art that we have today, to be honest. I think he was a very attuned man.
Yes.
Because he was from London, and he became he obviously studied all these things, but at that time there was the big debates between the Catholic and Protestant factions going on. So he also had to be quite careful of what he was doing, because he could easily be caught up as being told to be like as a witch or something, even though he didn't dabble himself. He was more of a like a philosopher come scryer, though it wasn't him that did the scrying, but we'll get to that. Come Well, actually, I've got a quote here of his. I'm going to read this quote out. So this is from John Dee, and he says, "Oh, omnipotent divine majesty, how we mortals are constrained to confess what great wisdom and what ineffable mysteries reside in the law which thou hast made." And some people take it he was talking about Queen Elizabeth there, but I think he's also talking about what God is to him, you know, that this universe is made up of lots of different laws and wisdom, and he was looking for that higher wisdom that, you know, most people that are into a kind of an occult or an esoteric spiritual path are looking for.
Very interesting, yeah. It's intriguing quote
It
from
is,
an
isn't it?
individual, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, because he wrote diaries. He's and then his diaries are still available to read, and I know many people publish them now and then. And you can I can't remember if it's the British Library, but somewhere's got them. Because he wrote everything down. He was kind of like the, I wouldn't say he was the Leonardo da Vinci in the art way of being of his age, but he was the Leonardo da Vinci in his research. You know, he wanted to know everything. He wanted to fathom the gist, as Gurdjieff would say. He wanted to understand how the whole universe worked and whether people lived after death and whether there were other beings out there. You know, I know many people know him for his Enochian language, which hopefully we can get to as well at some point. Because he's one of the few magicians we know of that we've actually got his date of birth, because he was an astrologer. He used to redo his chart all the time, and he was actually born on, I've just got it written down here, July the 13th, 1527, and he knows his latitudes, he knows his longitudes, he knows everything of how to create a chart. And in them days they were done a bit differently to how astrology charts are done today. Today they're done in a circle, where in his days they were done as a square box, and all the houses would be in little squares around the box, and
But
all the
like
planets would be
segregation type,
aligned. Sorry?
would it be like so it'd be square box and then there would be squares within the squares like segmented, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And he was quite intrigued with the box magic. Escaped me the name of them, where you have so many boxes in a square and the letters spell the same word one way and down that way, but then they spell another word and then another word, but it's all linked. So it starts repeating itself. The magic of boxes, box magic, I suppose it is.
Sounds fascinating, man.
It is, isn't it? I find it quite difficult to read a square astrology chart myself, but I suppose I was brought up on doing a round astrology chart.
Yeah, I could see how it's like completely different. I wonder if it was changed to make things easier. Like you're saying, like what you just explained to me, and that sounded as if it could be complicated. But if it's changed to like a sphere or a circle, it might have been changed to make it more more understandable. I don't know. Do you think?
Well, I hear different stories, and one of them I know I've heard of is that they started doing the Eastern way of doing charts, though that wouldn't be Indian. Like the Vedic charts, they're also in squares. So it would have been perhaps from the Middle East or something. Maybe they did it that way. And then someone else told me, another astrologer said it was because they realized that the planets go round the sun, and that's when the astrology charts became circular. But I've never found a really satisfactory reasoning as to why they changed to circles. I think I just find it easy because that's the way I was brought up to read an astrological chart.
Yeah, yeah. Like you're saying, who knows why it was really changed, but whatever way works for you, I guess we're all different, aren't we?
Yes. But I think it's important to have your astrological chart done. I think, you know, if you're interested in these kind of things, it's a good way to look at yourself, because one of the important parts of being on either a spiritual or soul path or an esoteric path is to understand yourself. You know, one of the first rules is know thyself, and having your astrological birth chart really shows you the person you were supposed to be in this material world. And we're here to develop ourselves so that we can get to the higher worlds or be in touch with the higher worlds. Your astrology chart kind of shows you your essence, who you should be. But life gets in the way, doesn't it? And we sometimes change our paths or change our personalities, where your astrology chart will show you what you were meant to be, and hopefully are if you're working on yourselves. And they're good things to do for if you're doing you've got something planned. Like, let's take, for example, when you first started doing these podcasts, maybe someone could have drawn you up a astrology chart to say the birth of your podcast, to tell you, yes, this is a good idea or this is not a good idea. Obviously, it was a good idea because you're still doing it and you do very successful podcasts. But
thanks, baby.
I know many people that do them for if they want to decide, oh, should I know someone who runs a conference, and she decides when to do it by setting up an astrological chart to make sure it fits in with the like the stars and the planets and the energies they're sending down to our planet on a particular day work better. The king himself will probably have had an astrological chart done for when's the best day to do his coronation. When is it good for him? Which is what Dr. D would have been doing for Elizabeth I. He would have been sorting out all her astrological charts for, whatever she's doing that day or planning for the future.
Allegedly they were pretty close from what I'm led to believe anyway, like from what I've read, which that is pretty impressive for somebody to be that connected to the Queen. I think back then as well, not like now where we can like phone call or drop an email. I think it's completely different back then.
Well, also the work he would have had to put in, because he would have had to work out all the calculus and where the planets are himself, where now most astrologers, they've got an app on their computers to do it for them.
Yeah, it's
so mathematically he must have been very attuned and know his stars and planets and the effects they have. He would have had to really study it all and understand how planets work.
Yeah, he must have been so clever. He's like light years above everybody else. He must have been. I wonder what like the general public thought of him back then.
Well, they did, like, because he would have been like the who could we comparing him to modern day? He had been known about. He would have been a name because of how because he did a lot of other things, not just the astrology. He was known for he had a huge library, so many people came and bought and sold books to him, and obviously he had his own clientele that would come to him for advice and astrological readings and such like. And in them days, that would have been, I'm trying to, like the Russell Grant of his day. You know who Russell Grant is, like our UK's top astrologer.
Yeah. You don't hear much of Russell Grant. He's the dude what used to be like in back of the paper, didn't he?
Yeah, I think he's retired now. I used to prefer Jonathan Caner, but he's died. Yeah, because you used to have Mystic Meg on certain TV programs and things, but I find them a bit more, I'm sure they're very true to what they believe in, but people, they kind of like mystify it all a bit more and have to put on a bit of razzle dazzle, don't they? Oh, I'm Mystic Meg and I've got my crystal ball, where he would have been much more serious.
Yeah. He said I guess that a lot of it now, it's sort of set up probably because like Dr. John Dee, he would have been like one of the first to set this kind of thing up. Because I'm not aware of many others, not of his caliber anyway.
Exactly, yes, which is why he was so, because he knew things. He knew how to he studied a lot of the old books and books from other countries that other people probably didn't have the patience to do. A true magician would study. It's not all about waving your wand and casting a spell, you need to understand how the cosmos works and how you work in the cosmos.
Yeah, yeah. You hit the nail on the head though with that. He would have been, he said, light years above everybody else. But with the intention of progressing, self-progression as well.
Mm.
And I know, didn't he? Is it Enochian magic he studied as well?
Okay, I'll tell you the story about Enochian magic. So this would be with his second scryer, Edward Kelly. And if we remember, I'll do the first scryer later because he's got an interesting story to tell. But
nice.
Yeah, the second scry, because he couldn't scry himself, Dr. D. And scrying's when you look into a crystal ball or into a bowl of water. Nostradamus used to apparently do it in a bowl of water.
Okay.
He's scrying. But Kelly did it with this obsidian mirror, which is in the British Museum. I've actually took some pictures last week, so I'll send them to you use. Of hopefully they'd be usable for you to use, or you might be able to find some online. So he had a quite probably about this size of my head, bigger, black obsidian mirror, and it was supposedly came from South America. Yeah, that's it. But no one knows how he got hold of it. That's a bit of a mystery. So he and Edward Kelly, they would spend the day fasting, lots of prayers, because he wanted to get in touch with the higher beings. And this is not something I advise to people. So I'm going to quickly say that in now, because I think it's very difficult to get in touch with the higher beings. I think the more demonic forces will come through first, because they are attracted to things like that. And they'll come through, and they will do a lot of deceiving first.
Yeah, so like pretending that they would have been possibly a good entity when the opposite.
Yes, and after a while they start doing trickster things. But this is what happened to Dr. D. So he's with Edward Kelly. They've kept their room, he's like, let's call it his office, all sacred, done their prayers, perhaps burnt a bit of incense or something, lit candles. And Edward Kelly would then look at the obsidian mirror, and like when someone looks into a crystal ball, he would start perhaps chanting or saying prayers, calling forth, inviting. Well, they were trying to contact the angels, which is where it comes into the Enochian part. And one being came through, this little female, but it's quite difficult because in some books they say she actually appeared. In others, she talked to them through the mirror, the black mirror. And until we get a time machine, it'd be quite difficult to know the truth. From his diaries that I've read, I seem to gather that they didn't actually speak. She gave Edward Kelly an alphabet, and then they'd have to make a grid of this alphabet, but it wasn't an A to Z alphabet like ours. It was of these strange sigils. And this is what became known, like a symbol, yes. And this is what became known as the Enochian alphabet. And this lady that came through her, I'm terrible, I've forgotten her name. I'm really annoyed with myself. But she's like she's saying an angel. She's an angel, but I don't think she was, as we'll find out. She's given them these sigils to write down. And then so this must have been a long and tedious process. She would then indicate to Kelly which one to point on this grid that they made so that they could make a conversation.
Yeah.
And the Enochian language, she said, was the language of the angels. And it's called Enochian because Enoch, who's one of the patriarchs of he was in the Old Testament, but for some reason his books were taken out of many of the Bibles. I can't remember which Bible does still have them. I think it's the Ethiopian. Yeah, I'm sure it is. But the books of Enoch were taken out. I think they were seen as too woo-woo because Enoch, he was visited by angels and taken up to the heavens. And he spent a long time with the angels up in these heavens. And to communicate with them, they taught him the language of the angels, which then became known as the Enochian language.
Debbie,
Yeah.
just sorry to interrupt. Is this the same Enoch who became Metatron?
Yes, exactly. This is the very dude. So he's the great grandfather of Noah, the father of Methuselah, who are very important characters in the Bible. And the reason he became Metatron was when he died, he didn't die. Instead, he advanced to the next stage of humanity. And I'm a big believer of this. I believe that when we advance properly and develop our souls and our essences and break free of the programming of this universe, of this world rather, we then become angels. That should be our next stage in our evolution. So when he became an angel, he was given a new name, Metatron, and he was given the books of God, and he did a lot of writing down of. He was dictated to by God. He actually met God in the books of Enoch. He's one of the few people that ever saw him face to face. Even Moses didn't see God's face. Moses saw his backside, because God was too much for him, and so he had to look away. So Enoch was a very revered character, and he must have been a very pure character for them to come and take him up, like the angels to take him up to the heavens. Not anybody's going to be taken to the heavens when they're still alive. It all sounds a bit like a UFO abduction. This is why you get all the ancient alien theorists of it was not angels at all, but beings from another planet came in their UFO and took him up. And he does talk about the noise of the vehicle that the angels took him up in. It was very loud, like ear piercing, and all the fire and everything. So it does sound like a spaceship or a rocket. But he got to see all 7 heavens. And 7's a very magical number in the occult world. And I know in a lot of people, they say, it's just the one heaven, but the 7 layers of the heavens are, again, the different regions of what God was putting forward, like the angels, the archangels, they all have their different realms.
Yeah.
And so Enoch got to see all this. And he was also shown the future, which he probably found quite difficult to explain, because he probably didn't have the terminology of what was to come, which is why his books are quite mysterious. But you could read a lot into them when one does read them. I'm actually in the process of trying to record some of them actually for audio, because I think they're fascinating.
Yes.
There's so many different translations, but they were hidden for a long time, for a few hundred years. But going back to Dr. D, that's what he was told by this little angel being. She was giving him the language of the angels. And I think I've got a little quote here. Let me just have a quick look of where it is, where they're talking about this. Because it was more of, he's doing all this in his laboratory. Where was it? So he's blah, blah, blah. Right. So he's scrying to the angels and the spirits so that Kelly could see and hear them. So Dr. D can't. He's not a medium. He can't see them. So he's being told everything by Edward Kelly.
Yeah.
And they were giving him information through the angelic language. And he was told about Enoch being the great grandfather of Noah, and he was told about Enoch's travels. And this is in a time when the books were missing.
Right. Okay.
Because Enoch, because he was such a righteous man, that was it. Because he was such a righteous man, that was why he was allowed to go to the heavens and walk with the angels and the gods. And Enoch was being told by the angels, the whole mission of the angels is to look after the first humans, but they didn't, because you know the story of how the Watchers seduced the female ladies.
Yes.
And then you had the Nephilim, the half caste, I suppose, born children that were half angel, half human. The Nephilim then wreaked havoc. So Enoch was he was a witness to the judgment that was put on them angels that got involved with all that. And Enoch was saying, oh, you should forgive these angels. It's just, you know, something that happened. And God got a little bit angry with him, I believe, and said, no, you know, they did wrong. They broke my commandments. But after a while, he listened to Enoch and realized, yeah, he should be forgiven. And again, because Enoch being such a righteous man, he was trying to put forward, as we should with everything. People make mistakes. If they know they've done wrong, they had their mea culpa, we should forgive them. If they don't want to admit what they've done and, you know, can't bring themselves to say sorry or whatever, then that's different. They need to be punished. And so Dee was wanting to learn this lost language that the angels used to converse with the angels. So with these sigils, they were being told what to do. Dr. Dee was being given all kinds of information from the angel about well, what was going on in the heavens, what's going to happen on the planet, what's you know, advice and perhaps mysteries of what was happening with other beings, you know, the demonic forces and such like. But then this little lady, whatever she was, I don't think she was an angel, she started asking Dee and Edward to start doing some weird stuff, including asking them to have a wife swapping session, which doesn't sound very angelic to me.
It does not.
No, does it? And this is one of the famous episodes in Dr. Dee's life that everyone knows about, because it's very confusing. If Dee was such a righteous man, and Edward Kelly, obviously he was married, and he had you know, he was willing to do this, apparently Kelly was. But
It makes
Dr.
me wonder
Dee,
that, doesn't it?
yeah, go on.
Just made it
Wonder
up.
what was he after? Maybe he had a little fancy of Dee's wife, and Dee's wife was devastated by it, but they did do it because the angels, I'm doing in parentheses here, told them to do it. But I think that was perhaps the beginning of the end of their relationship, because that must have been it must have just broke the ladies' hearts, isn't it, that they had to do this because they were being told to do it.
Yeah, you could imagine that's like a manipulation on another level. That, I mean, think
Yes.
of back then, at that time.
And I think a demonic entity would quite enjoy feeding off that kind of negative energy that was created by it. But again, we're not there. I wish we had a time machine. We could go back and find, you know, maybe Jane Dee was in love with Edward Kelly and was up for it. But from Dee's diaries, it sounds like his wife wasn't too happy about it. They did still all stay friends in a group for a while longer, because the four of them went to Prague. And in Prague, the king of that time, or maybe he was an emperor, he was very into discovering how to make gold, and he was looking for alchemists. So alchemists from all around the, you know, Europe were coming to Prague. Prague was a very esoteric time back then.
That's fascinating, that.
And they say that Dee and Kelly were the only ones that were able to perform the alchemical tract of turning a little bit of lead to gold. It was only a small piece, but the Emperor Frederick was very pleased with them and paid for them to stay with him in Prague to help forward that venture. You know, alchemy was a big thing in them days.
Could you imagine, though, like in those days, being able to turn, like, I mean, even now, if you could witness somebody with your own eyes, somebody turn a piece of lead to actual gold. That is, it's just mesmerizing, that to me. Mesmerizing.
Well, people have been looking into this kind of thing for centuries. I myself was very interested in how the alchemical process worked, but over time I realized it's not necessarily about a material thing. It should be an alchemical process within oneself. We're turning ourselves into the gold. We're working on ourselves, bringing ourselves out of the lead-filled life that we're living of materialism, and the path takes you back to your connection to the divine.
It's just so impressive, isn't it? The capabilities of what some very talented individuals can do.
Mm. But one of the sad stories about this was John Dee had a little son called Arthur. And this angelic being, I'm trying to find her name. I did have it written down somewhere. Anyway, she asked him, or through Kelly, to bring Arthur to the sessions that they were having because she believed that he would be a great medium. And Dr. D, he declined this. He didn't want his son involved in this at all. You know, he didn't want his son, well, being involved with other realms. You know, he was only a young little boy, 5, 6 years old. And then a tragedy happened. And this is happening in Mortlake in London, which is, it was a little village at that time, but it had a big giant lake and it was connected with the Thames. The Thames flowed through it. And little Arthur went out for a walk by himself and he was found drowned in the Thames. And there's all this talk of what happened. Did he just slip in? Was he called in by the demonic forces? Did they trick him into coming into the Thames? You know, it's an awful tragedy, but it just all smells rotten to me.
Yeah.
And I still think demonic entities like to feed off young children's energy. It's very pure for them. It's a very fresh, pure energy, where us adults are a little bit more corrupted, a little bit more not connected to the divine, whereas children still have that innocence about them. So dark forces are going to be looking for that all the time to feed off of.
Yeah. It's exactly, isn't it? How I guess it's some sort of like vampiric nature, just like sucking the whatever you can. Like,
yeah. And they probably enjoy it. I heard an old tale, and I can't remember where it came from, that there was a man that managed to get to talk to God. And he was like, why do you let all the children be hurt? Why is there so much awfulness that happens to children? And God said, I've given you free will, so you can all do what you want to each other. You know, I can't stop them. Otherwise, you know, it becomes like a tyranny, doesn't it? God suddenly says, no, stop. And so this man's like, but you should be saving the children. And he went, I can't. This is for you to save the children. You humans should be. And he went, but why does it all happen? Why does all this, you know, awfulness happen to children? And he said, and God said, this is to do with the devil. The devil likes to attack the children because he knows that when he hurts the children, he hurts me most, hurts God most. Which is why I think, how to put this, you and I both know of, they say it's all conspiracy theory, but we know children are hurt and used in rites and rituals that are not good. And if the demonics are feeding off the children's innocence and their fear and their pain when they're being put through some torturous, horrible scenario, you know, that's why we need to try and protect the children. It's really important to get out there to protect the children and remind children that there is a God. But there's not enough of that these days. Everything's being secularized. You don't get much of having a faith in something in schools anymore. Not many kids go to a Sunday school anymore. And I'm not saying that, or whatever their faith is, we need to make sure they know that there is a God out there that loves them, a divine source. But it's difficult to explain to them that there's also dark forces out there that will do everything it can to feed off their fear.
Yeah.
How do we train children not to believe in fear? Like, what was it Yoda says in Star Wars? Fear leads to the dark side.
Yeah. I think, you're right though, Debbie. It's like we say, like with Sunday schools. I mean, I'm not religious like whatsoever, but I think there's pros and cons with it. I think it could be good, but this is just my opinion. It's borderline sort of, especially if you're anti-religious, sort of brainwashing in a way.
Exactly, and this is why we need to get rid of the institutions. And somehow, I don't know how. I haven't got the answer properly, but I feel like there needs to be some kind of spiritual, soulful revival that gets rid of the institutions and just lets people know somehow that they can make their connection with the divine.
That's brilliant, that, Debbie. I love
Yeah.
that.
But how do we, I'm still working on it. How do we do that? How do we especially
that
teach
way.
the youngsters?
Yeah. Say it's so difficult now with how things are. Society is completely different than what it was when I was growing up. Anyway, I'm sure it was like the same for you as well. It's so different now.
Yeah,
And
just to remind children that they can believe in something and not be, or even be told about it. You know, there's so many families nowadays. Okay, it's their right. If they don't want to believe in anything, they don't have to, but they don't even think about it. So they don't even put that to their children. And sometimes children don't know where to go, or that they can pray, or that they can send a message up to the higher realms. They don't know anything about that.
like it's like as if there's a lack of direction, so to speak.
Yes.
It's a shame, isn't it? Because the way kids now are taught, I think it's quite worrying. It's quite worrying.
It is, yeah. But then hopefully there'll be an awakening of some kind, because there always seems to be, doesn't there? When things
Yeah.
get so dire, like definitely the last few generations have not been as well, they're all stuck to their phones, aren't they? So they're being distracted.
Exactly. Yeah.
But I do notice some people break away from that sometimes. I have a few young people that come to various workshops that I give to, who I can see want to find that there's more to life than just being on their phone and going to work or whatever, but they just don't know where to turn, and they don't really want to go to sign up to church or anything like that. And I understand that they need to find it through other paths. We were lucky we had the new age wave in the last 100 years, but that's also gone a bit weird in some places. I think some of it's very materialistic.
Yeah,
It's about getting what you want, get that brand new car by thinking that positive thought, and it shouldn't be being used for materialism. It should be being used for your spiritual development, because then things will come that you need, that you deserve.
I think if you're meant to have something, you will get it. You might not get it straight away, but eventually, if you're meant to have it, it will come. But like you say now, it just seems to be the majority is materialistic. It's what it's all about. Is I want this, I want that, and with no appreciation.
Well, it's because they're trying to fill that emptiness inside them, that emptiness of where they've not got their connection to the divine. So they fill it with one thing that doesn't last long, then they fill it with another. And then they think that's the only way to keep filling it, because they don't really understand what that emptiness is. And I've spoken to people about this over the years, when I've met people that are, don't have much of a faith in anything, but they're always looking for something, whether it's that new phone or that next boyfriend or the next girlfriend, or whatever, or they have, changed jobs because they're still not satisfied, and then trying to show them, well, you're obviously not at peace within yourself.
Yeah.
And sometimes finding that peace within oneself, one has to look further than the material world and look at, well, what is this world? Do I believe that it was created from a big bang and it's just, it just happened? Or do I believe there's higher forces behind it? And some people find that hard to think about. They don't want to, because it's, it is difficult when you start going down that route. It's a lot of rabbit holes to go down.
It is. I think.
Oh, go on. Sorry.
Sorry, love. Do you think? You see, how I see things is, it tends to be those people that they don't understand it, they fear it, and that's when the likes of whatever subject is demonized.
They don't understand it. Instead of trying to understand it, like, I mean, like, yeah, rabbit hole stuff, they would rather not take that direction and just
Absolutely.
demonize it.
Because also it means having to look at oneself and all the actions you've done in the past. And then that might bring up some bad thoughts or remembrances or guilty feelings. But the whole point of a spiritual path is that you learn to deal with that. You have to learn to forgive yourself. You know, we hold grudges against what other people have done to ourselves. And definitely when people go on a spiritual or a soulful path, then kind of memories come back up. You know, I know a lot of people that find it difficult to go to sleep at night because things just come at them, or things that they don't want to think about. I myself think that's dark forces trying to distract us.
Yes,
And even if
that,
it is dark forces or not, we still need to deal with it so that we can then clear ourselves of it. That again is an alchemical process within one. And we learn to view what them instances were,
yeah,
and try not to bring up the old feelings from it, all that, you know, normally a cringing feeling, or oh, why did I do that kind of feeling, or why did that happen to me kind of feeling, and instead realize it was from the past. I know it sounds easy to just say let it go, but you don't just let it go. You have to look at the cause of it all. Why was I like that? Most of the time, most of our actions are programming, where we're programmed to respond to things in a certain way. We react very easily. And this is why it's quite a hard path, because we need to change that program. We break that programming. And instead of reacting, we learn how to act, how to think, how to be in a moment. You know, that person's really trying to piss me off. And instead of falling for it, you have to think, yeah, that person's trying to piss me off, but I'm not going to let them.
yeah.
It takes a lot of pondering on and studying of oneself, which again comes back to, you know, get an astrological chart and learn about yourself. Learn
But like
why, you know,
self-control,
you become, sorry.
bit like self-control, maybe.
Yes. And find out whether, you know, maybe you're a bit weak in the loving situation of being able to forgive someone, or maybe you're a bit too headstrong in a angry situation. Everyone's slightly different. We're all, you know, got different scales of this. But if we understood, oh, right, that's why I keep losing my temper, because I've got, I think, well, let's say Mars in Aries, because that's quite a warrior type planet. And then that's quite a warrior type astrological chart. You know, that could be why you're like that. And you could think, right, that's me, but I'm aware of that now. I recognize I'm like that, and I'm not going to let it control me. Or someone else might have their Mars planet in an astrological sign that's a bit more gentle, which is why they don't kick off when it all kicks off. You know, we've all met people like that. They can calmly go through an argument while everybody else is losing their temper. You know, it's a great way of learning who you are, who you really are, and not how you've been programmed and changed as you've grown up and learned from your peers.
I love that.
Mm.
Yeah, you've got a huge point. To me, it makes total sense. I think that, to me, if we could have somebody like yourself being as like a mentor for this generation, I think it would make a huge difference on society. The impact would be impact as it should be.
We do. I think that, not necessarily me. Sorry, I mean, like, I call them learned beings. If there was enough learned beings out there that could teach people how, like you say, mentoring, and I know they are out there. I know there are people doing this kind of work, but it's in their area.
Yeah.
Of where they live, not just the area that they're working with. Like that area, there's no. I suppose the only person that's famous for it today would perhaps be Eckhart Tolle. I might have said his name wrong. I know a lot of people are quite influenced by him. He seems to be a very good spiritual advisor. I try to do that on my own channel. I have a very small following, but that's fine, because I understand it's for people who have ears to hear.
Yeah, I love your channel.
Oh, thank you. But there are other people doing that work as well, and you have to find the person that you resonate with, because obviously some people, I'm sure I piss some people off, and then there's other people that like the way I present myself, and it's going to be the same for everyone. You know, no one's 100% liked by everybody, are they?
Well, I'm not too sure. You know what I think of you, and you know what you mean to me. You are you're up there with the elite of the elite, in my opinion. I really do think that if we had the likes of you being, like I just said, being a mentor for this generation, I think it would be extraordinary.
I think some people also come to this kind of work perhaps when they're a bit older in their life, you know, once they've had their families, or sometimes it happens when a tragedy happens. They're looking for meaning in their life.
Yeah,
Very important. Oh, sorry.
Trauma, when that trauma
Mm.
affects us all differently.
Yes.
You're right. I think that if somebody, it might like trigger something that they had inside them that they didn't realise before.
Yes, absolutely.
Some
And
sort of
also,
like rebirth in a way.
and triggering is one of the major words that I have to use quite a lot when I'm with people. That's triggered you. That's why you're acting like that, or reacting rather than acting, because you've been triggered. So doing a spiritual path helps you to learn your trigger points, and then you can improve yourself on that kind of thing and become I want to say a better person, but that sounds a bit snobbish. I'm not, you know, a better person that you like. Many people don't like themselves, and they
That's
need
true.
to learn to like themselves and figure out who they are. And that's a lot of the problems with people today, I've found, especially with people that have come to me on one-to-ones. After a while, I've realized, oh, you just don't like yourself, and they feel very down on themselves. Maybe they're being put down by other people, or maybe they've done things that made them hate themselves or not like themselves. But we have to find the true person in us, the essence of ourselves, because inside we're all loving, very carefree, yes, loving, soulful people, but we've just been put down by this materialistic world, and all the peers that we had before us that are all programmed, all our teachers, all the people we looked up to. Very few of them are what I would call learned spiritual beings. Most of them are just following the rote of how to live in this materialistic world.
Yeah, you've got a point there. I mean, I guess what I'm trying to say is, to some level of extent, that we're all manipulated in one way or another.
Mm.
Like you're saying, like school teachers, for example, they're told what to do, like a curriculum, and then whoever's telling them to do it, somebody's telling them to do it, and it's just like a knock-on effect. So it's coming from somewhere. And I say teachers, then it's just an example, probably because it's an easy way of an easy example,
Mm.
like curriculum in itself.
It's one of the main examples. You know, we've all been programmed by our schools.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I'm not having a dig at teachers whatsoever. I'm just saying that that area.
The institution is wrong. The way it teaches children, it's by rote, when we should be looking at children and seeing, right, that child's got that qualities, that child's got that qualities, and try and bring them out. I've had some wonderful teachers. There are very nurturing teachers out there. I agree. You know, we're not knocking teachers per se. It's a hard job they do. But the ones that are programmed to, just like you say, follow on and follow on. But thankfully, there are teachers out there that try their best to bring children out to the fore.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's teachers as well that be out there that they're given a certain curriculum to teach. Maybe they'll still do that particular topic, but they might do it in their own way, which might be like more understandable, because you can have a conversation with somebody and you might not understand what they're saying, but somebody else might have the same approach, but different in their own way, and it might be more understandable from their perspective.
I'm so with you on that. I've actually just done a show on my YouTube channel about that, because for many years I was just mainly doing Gurdjieff work, but in the last few years I've been bringing in Rudolf Steiner. I actually had someone send an email the other day, "Oh, you're back doing Steiner," and he even was quite angry with me in the email. But I was saying to him, but I learned, just like what you've said, somebody else, Steiner's saying something to me in a different way to what Gurdjieff is, and he's made me understand something in a different way. That's why I think we don't need to follow one particular philosophy. We should be looking at as much different stuff as we can. And I even read stuff that I'm not particularly into, but I know I need to know the basis of it, ready for when someone wants to engage in that conversation.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah, that's
we need to be varied. Like Dr. D, he knew everything.
Well, do you know what it's like the saying, knowledge is power? It speaks for itself, doesn't it? Especially like with Dr. John D, how he wanted to progress and know everything as he possibly could, and there you go.
He spent his last 10 years as a professor at the college in Manchester. Did you know that?
Really?
Yeah.
I did not.
Yeah, I went there last year. I asked them if I could go into the rooms that he was in, but they wouldn't let me in. But then I know colleges and that are very probably careful these days who you let into schools and things. But yeah, he spent his last 10 years in Manchester, and he even did apparently a bit of necromancy up there, tried to raise the dead, bit of spirit summoning.
Really? Yeah. It's just a fascinating individual.
Yeah, I'm trying to find where my notes were about Manchester, because I thought he was buried up there, but he was actually brought back to Mortlake in London.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah. So where was my Manchester one? It's definitely was his last 10 years. He was professor up there. He was still dabbling. I've got written here. Having a dabble with things. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Let me tell you first about his first scribe, Barnabas Saul, because this is quite a funny story. So before Edward Kelly came along, he had another scribe called Barnabas Saul. And Barnabas Saul lived in Dee's house at the time because he didn't have anywhere to live. And Barnabas Saul was obviously calling up elementals or whatever, calling up some figures for Dee to talk to Dee. So Barnabas Saul was being like a medium. They were the scrying answers were coming to him into his head, then he was telling Dr. D. But he didn't. Dee says that he didn't really believe in any of all this. But one night, when Dr. D had gone to bed upstairs with his wife, Barnabas Saul was downstairs, and he was suddenly aware of something dark in the room with him. And so he's put on the candle, and he suddenly saw that there was a big set of eyes looking at him, and he could smell the breath of something horrendous. And through the shadows, he could see there was an awful beast waiting for him, was about to pounce on him. And apparently Barnabas Saul just run out the front door and run out of Dee's house, never to be seen again. So you have to be careful with the scrying, because you don't know what you're bringing up. And that's why I was saying at the beginning, we shouldn't just do it. We have to be very careful. Obviously, they didn't shut down their circle or whatever their seance was afterwards. And too many elemental dark forces were still coming through. You'd think Dr. D would learn from that, but he still wanted to learn more.
Yeah, I think I'm sure Alistair Crowley had that same problem from when he left Boleskine House.
Yes, because he left, and he even admits that, doesn't he? He never shut down the. He was doing the Abramelin, wasn't he? And he'd gone to continue that battle with the Golden Dawn. He was called away. I can't remember if it was Matthews.
Was it Paris he went? Yeah. Was it Paris? Yeah.
He went to join MacGregor Mathers in Paris, and MacGregor Mathers was one of the founders of the Golden Dawn. And there was a big battle going on. I think probably about 5-6 years into the maybe longer than that, of the Golden Dawn's running. But there was a bit of as there always is in these societies. There was a bit of a breakup going on between the leaders. And as you rightly say, Crowley left Boleskine to go and help Mathers. But at the time, Crowley was doing the Abramelin work, which is a 6-month ritual where you're calling up all kinds of dark forces. He thought he was calling up angels. But whatever he called up, when he ran away, they say has been haunting Boleskine ever since. And I've heard people say that I heard of a workman that was working there when Jimmy Page bought that house. And he felt he was being followed around by some kind of dog hound or hellhound, and he left pretty quickly.
Dog man or something. Whoa. It's
there's all the talk of Nessie, isn't there? Did Nessie come because Crowley opened up the portal for beasts to come through? And I know there's people now that say, oh, there were tales of Nessie before Crowley, but it's a lovely story to think about.
Yeah, it is. And it actually makes sense, doesn't it? You think of it, if he's opening portals there and he's not closed it, who knows what could come through, like you say. You just don't know, do you?
And it's one of the things I am concerned about people doing magic. Are they closing portals properly? And if they're not, then them creatures are still roaming the earth.
Yeah, you've got a point there, Debbie, you know.
So if you're going to dabble in that kind of thing, make sure you know how to shut it all down again and they're all sent back to where they came from. So you shouldn't really be doing that. You don't need to call up dark entities to do whatever you need to do.
Was it when what's his name now? Oh, but his name's the
Give me a clue.
Cameron.
Marjorie Cameron? No, that's the woman, isn't it?
Well, what's the partner? What's his name
Jack
now?
Parsons and L. Ron Hubbard.
That's it, Jack Parsons. Sorry, just like, you know, when you think of it and it just won't come out right. So Jack didn't he open something?
Yes.
Then Roswell happened after it because he did something along those lines.
Yes, they keep quite quiet about that, but yes, he did do a rich with Hubbard, I believe. L. Ron Hubbard, founder of Scientology, and Rosalind happened not long after.
Yeah. And something to say about that, because he said that it's something along the lines of they didn't close the ritual.
And they used to do rituals before, because as you know, he was he helped make rockets. You know, we wouldn't have the space program we have today without Jack Parsons.
Yeah.
But I know that the let's say the rocket industry like to keep quiet about the history of Jack Parsons being one of the major contributors because of his magical associations. But he used to do rituals before they ever launched any rocket. And he talks about that in his book, in his diaries that someone's got. I can't remember who.
Yeah.
So, and obviously he was learning from, I've forgotten the German guy's name, but he was and in touch with Crowley. He was writing letters to Crowley, whom Crowley actually warned him about L. Ron Hubbard and told him that he didn't think the man had a very good morality, which is quite strong coming from Crowley.
Yeah, I think he had that. Well, like most British, he had that British humour. It's different, isn't it?
Mm.
I think that's one thing we are good at is humour. It's different.
And Jack Parsons himself, he had his tragedy when he died. You know, there's still. I know they tried to say it was suicide. I'm pretty sure it wasn't suicide.
I mean, some that his caliber. He's you know, I'm not just saying he's a wizard, he's a magical wizard. I'm on about his knowledge in like rockets and that kind of thing. I find it hard to believe that that was an accident. It just doesn't make sense.
No, he would have known what chemicals to use and things. Whether he was murdered, you know, there's all that idea, or whether it was a dark element maybe decided to blow him up. You know, 'cause he blowed up, for those that didn't know it, he blew up in his laboratory, which I believe was in the backyard of his house. He had his own private laboratory where he was working on rocket fuel and things like that, trying to create, you know, other rockets, better rockets. And well, it all went wrong and it blew up. You know, that's how he died. But he wanted to make a moon child, which is quite interesting because that's what one of Aleister Crowley's fiction books is all about, Moonchild. I've got an audio version on my YouTube channel, which is all about how he was trying to create this moon child that I wouldn't say would be a messiah, but would be a child with certain energies and connections with other realms, you know, superhuman maybe.
Again, absolutely fascinating tale. I should say it's remarkable. And do you think that the actual something came about it, where they actually created a moonchild and we just don't know about it?
I don't think that happened. I think they failed at that, mainly because him and Hubbard ended up having a falling out because Hubbard ran off with Parsons. I don't know if she was his girlfriend at the time or his wife, but I know Hubbard ended up marrying her. I think instead maybe they again left certain portals open that brought in various elements that maybe they couldn't control. You know, they did a lot of ritual work. They used to talk about how they used to go out into the desert because obviously they're living in America then. So it's like the Nevada area and things like that.
It's
elements. Sorry.
Yeah, it's that connection to desert again. There's seems to be a lot connected to deserts. Do you know of any significance to that, Debbie? There's why?
I think it's because it's so barren, and because I do strongly believe a lot of like the jinn and other dark forces like that live in them kind of areas. They don't really want to interact with us humans, so they go and live out there. They're not going to be, you know, I think quite strongly that thousands of years ago, I think there was a civilization, a human civilization that used to hunt them down and possibly try to exercise them. So I think that might be the reason that they went out into the deserts, because you hear all kinds of stories of people going into the desert, spending a few days in the desert, and they seem to meet some kind of
entity, like on ayahuasca, taking hallucinations, and next minute talking to clockwork elves and shit like that.
Yes. So I do think there's something about being out in them kind of that element of the desert. There's something about sand. Sand's got a lot of salt in it as well. Salt's a very important part of occult alchemy. So they're probably living in a like you know, they don't live in houses like we do. They're not interested in that materialistic stuff. They're into trying to steal our souls and destroy us.
It's like more it's like the earth, like pure nature, that kind of. Because I mean, like you say, what is in the desert? Sand, and that's about it.
And what would living out in something like that do to you, whether you're a human or another being entity? You know, that's going to play on your mind. I used to, for my degree, I did one of my essays was on how the monks survived out in the deserts, because they used to go out there and live in the caves and things, and some of them used to talk about having to battle demons all the time. And theologians say, oh, that's their inner demons, but I wonder if they actually fought physical demonic entities out there in the deserts. When the devil tempted the Christ, it was when Christ went for his 40 days in the desert.
Remarkable, isn't it?
So be careful if you go to the desert. Make sure you're pure of heart and don't be tempted by the dark forces.
I love that, Leather. It is, it is just everything about everything is fascinating.
It is, and people should be open up to, if they're interested on their spiritual path, of looking at everything. As Gurdjieff writes in his book's actually called All and Everything. To develop ourselves and use that alchemical tract within ourselves, we need to know all and everything about ourselves.
Yeah, that's I love that.
I'm going to have to go in a minute.
You know what? I just love
the I'm like, wow.
Getting late into it, but Debbie, once again, you really are one of the most fascinating individuals. That not just one of my favourites, but our listeners, they're always asking when you're coming on next. You are really are fascinating. Whatever we discuss, it's always something so different.
Oh, I appreciate your listeners. I think it's great that they're listening to your kind of podcast. You're fluttering my ego at the moment. My ego's like, oh, but again, that's part of doing an alchemical tract. We need to bring our egos into check.
Yeah, and you are phenomenal, Deborah. And that's just awesome. You're incredible.
But if your listeners, any of them need any mentoring, I'm happy to talk to people. They can email me through my website, which is www.debbie-elliott.co.uk. I like to connect with people and help people with their spiritual and soulful path if they're stuck on anything or have information to tell me. I don't know everything. Always happy to learn about new things.
Well, and I will say one thing. You're fully aware of my current circumstances. Now, I will say one thing, Debbie. You have my back since you've known about it, and that is to me, that means so much.
You're in my prayers constantly because we need to sort ourselves out and make sure we're staying in our hearts and our souls.
Yeah, but so if you've got any questions for Debbie or anything at all you want to talk to about, there's nobody better to speak to than Debbie. She is incredible.
Oh, thank you, Lee.
Drop her an email. Subscribe to the channel on YouTube as well. I'll put all the links in the show notes like we usually do. But Debbie, it's been an absolute pleasure and honour speaking to you again.
Yeah, I've enjoyed it. I've always loved talking to you, General Lee. I look forward to next time.
Yes, can't wait. I can't wait. But before you go, Debbie, would you like to let everybody know where they can get hold of you, please?
Well, it's mainly through my website, debbie-elliott.co.uk. There's a link on there to go to my emails, or if you are on YouTube, you can leave comments there. It's another great way of staying in touch with each other. And I'm on Facebook, but there's lots of Debbie Elliott, so it's quite hard to find me.
I'll put the links in there so they'll know exactly where to do Debbie. But
if you're interested in fiction, I write fiction books which are available through my website as well. All have a bit of a theological theme, but they're all different, including one called The Watchers, which is all about my take on the first angels seducing the men and women.
He went off then, sorry.
Oh, did I?
Yeah, no, he just went off. I can hear you now, though. It just said pause. I don't know why.
Oh.
I
was just saying about my book, The Watchers, is available on my website, which is all about the first angels. It's my take on the first angels and the seduction of the first ladies. So that's available.
Brilliant.
It's an ebook and a paperback.
Oh, right. Fantastic. Lovely. Debbie, again, thank you very much, dear. I can't wait till we speak again. Lovely.
Thank you, General Lee. Always a pleasure.
Thank you, love. I'm going to stop recording now. But thanks again. 1 minute.